So this is super exciting for us. Obviously, Firebase, as I explained this morning in the keynote, was a huge inspiration for Superbase. So I just want to thank James for coming down today, and maybe just a quick round of applause for building such an awesome database.
It's great to be here.
And my first question, obviously, is why are British people so damn good at building database companies?
It's we take inspiration from the Queen, now the King, I guess. I don't know.
So you have actually known about Superbase for a long time. Can you remember when you first heard that we were building this?
So the first time I heard about Superbase was when you and Paul pitched me. So in the summer of 2020, I got some outreach. I think it was Gustav was your YC partner. One of the YC partners reached out and they were like, you have to talk to Paul and Ann. They're building something amazing. And we spoke and we had a great conversation, but there were just like, there was kind of these two waves of backend as a service wave. There was like the 2011, 2012 wave. And I think I counted there were like 43 kind of database as a service, backend as a service folks. And there was this second wave around, when you guys started, and I had gotten like a handful of these pitches, and I was like, they seem lovely. I think Paul was in Singapore at the time, and I didn't invest and didn't join you on the journey, which I now deeply regret. So that's when I first learned about Superbase.
How did it feel us positioning ourselves as a Firebase alternative?
It made a lot of sense. So I left Firebase. My Firebase journey was from 2011, and then I left Google about 2018, early 2018. So it had been about 2 years coming, or in between leaving Firebase and talking to you. And one of the things that I had heard consistently from our community was open source, open source, open source. And so I think your positioning was brilliant. We open sourced our client SDKs on Android and iOS, and web, of course, but the core of our platform was, I wanted to open source like a reference implementation, but there were things at Google that didn't allow me to do that. And so I think your positioning as open source both resonated with the developer community and was just a smart move.
Because you did make efforts in Google to open source Firebase, right?
And we did. Well, all of our clients are open source, but kind of the internals ended up, when we got acquired, moved to the proprietary Google stack, and as a result, it was hard to open source those.
Yeah. How long were you working on Firebase before the Google acquisition?
It's about 3.5 years.
And
3.5, 4 years.
And then post
about the same time.
What was the big differences between those two periods?
So I never got the memo that I had sold the company. So we joined Google, and in acquisition talks, and we can get into like why we chose to do the acquisition. But in acquisition talks, it's often continue your vision just with more resources, and all of those things happened. But there was there's all of the pros and there's all of the cons of joining a company like Google, and I continued to work extremely hard, but when we were independent, I could my co-founder Andrew and I could kind of tack and control what was going on internally. But once you join a bigger company, you're both contending with the market, and there's just a lot of internal stakeholders. And so we ended up becoming the vehicle that Google shipped everything on mobile for. And that just took a lot of time and energy and effort to kind of herd all of those cats.
Wow. So I definitely do want to hear the story about why the acquisition happened. Like, what was the biggest driver behind that?
So if things are going really well, there's 3 good reasons to sell a company. 1 is the founders are tired. 2 is if there's some existential threat. And 3 is if you capture like a substantial amount of value that you will capture in the future without risk now. And all 3 of those ended up being true. Like Firebase was our 4th company together, my co-founder and I. At the time, every major player had a hosted database offering available on mobile. So Facebook had purchased Pass, Azure and AWS had offerings. And then Google came along and said to us, like, hey, we're going to throw 100 Google engineers at this. I think at the time we were 30 or 40 people.
Wow.
You can come and be that, or we're going to just straight up compete with you. And then the price was, we went to raise a Series B, and the pre-money on the B, the acquisition price was 3x that. So it was like a very, very compelling offer. Now, in hindsight, we were seven and a half years in on the entrepreneurial journey. So all of those added up to the decision being made. In hindsight, I wouldn't have been scared of Google competing with us. I think, as Guillermo was talking about earlier, developer experience is the be-all and end-all in this space. And just big companies are going to do that nowhere as good as a smaller company with a passionate community who's doing things like this with their community.
That is such a magical moment, because for anyone who's pitched VCs, the question you fear typically the most is, well, what if Google decides to do this? What if Amazon decides to do this? A magical moment for us was realizing that actually you can compete with the major clouds on some stuff.
The only place I would be scared of competing with a Google, etc., is if cost is the primary differentiator, or if it's just absurdly large technical complexity. And yeah, I think DX was the driver here. And so in hindsight, I wouldn't be worried, and I don't think any of you, the question of what if Google does this is 90-something% of the time, like, not a concern.
But it's also not cheap to start a database company. Compute is very expensive, which is why I shut down so many of your instances constantly. Can you remember when you started to monetize?
So we started charging, we went GA in the summer of 2013. So it was 2 years after we started building, we went GA.
So you went out, you didn't charge, you got a bunch of traction. Can you remember, like, how many apps did you have, or roughly how many users?
So I think we had about 50,000 apps, active apps, when we did our Series A, which was right before we went GA. And we had a few paying customers, so we powered the chat on Twitch, like Twitch's sidebar. We powered a bunch of major American TV networks, had some applications that we powered. And we had all these interesting applications, like the mayor of Taiwan ran for re-election and built an app on Firebase. The University of Texas was using us to monitor all their supercomputer cores. So we had all of these really interesting use cases, and then we were able to go and raise a Series A off the back of that, and then started charging. And then when we sold to Google, which was 18 months later, I think it was about 120, 130,000 active apps.
Wow. All of the use cases you described there, it didn't sound like loads of them were mobile necessarily. Did the focus on mobile come more post-acquisition?
So Firebase, I don't know, I'm old now, but if you remember, way back to 2012 when we launched, the tagline was a scalable real-time backend for your web app. That was like the title on the homepage, and we had this exploded diagram of like a website, and then some things back there, and eventually a database. And it was, the original database was a JSON object that syncs. That was the whole premise in its simplicity was, you have a JSON object, it's in your browser, you write to it, everyone else gets it. Angular was like one of the big things at the time, and they had this like two-way binding between the model and the controller, and we called that three-way binding. One of the big growth hacks we had earlier was hooking up to Angular and the Angular community, and we built this open source binding. And so this JSON object that syncs piece was really the core, and it was really simple, it was really easy, and from that we kind of pulled out all of these other auth and functions and object storage and et cetera, et cetera.
And then when mobile really took off, like with people developing iPhone apps, where did that fit into your timeline? Was that?
So I think that around the time we went GA, we released iPhone and Android clients. So again, it was like 2 years into building the product.
And was that a big boost?
No. Like all of our initial growth was Angular, Backbone, Ember, Vue. Like Svelte was not yet a thing. So we hooked up to all these front-end frameworks. And the mobile, like we built an interop between core data on the iPhone, which was the closest analogy we had there. But mobile really kicked into gear. We had joined Google, and I spent a long time with the Android team, and we got shipped inside Google Play services. And so we were on every Android device on Earth. And we talked to the Google Cloud Messaging team, and we got them to rebrand it Google Firebase Cloud Messaging. So if you wanted to send a push notification to any Android app on the planet, you had to install the Firebase SDK. And mobile really took off. It was on the rise pre-acquisition, but then post-acquisition is when it went through the roof.
And now the Firebase brand is an umbrella for like a much broader suite of tools in the Google ecosystem, right? Did you ever like think that would happen, that it would be so big and so broad under Google?
So my co-founder and I wrote a vision document before we even wrote a line of code. And it was be the simplest to understand and the easiest to use development platform in the world. And that was the North Star before we ever did anything. And when we joined Google, everything was wonderful. And we joined Cloud, and we had this like very strong mandate, and like we're going to come and join Cloud, and like we're going to retain the brand. It's going to look like the Instagram acquisition, and we're just going to like be over here, and we're going to build our thing. And then 6 months later, post acquisition, I come into work, and there's an email from Sundar to like all of Google, and it's like we're creating a new product area. And for those of you who don't know, a Google product area is like Chrome or YouTube or Android. So we're creating a new product area, and it's going to be codenamed Google Mobile Platform. And it's going to be the delivery vehicle for all of our developer tools on mobile. And I was kind of sitting there like, but you bought us like 6 months ago. And one of the things I learned about Google is it's such a thousand flowers bloom culture, and it's like so much is going on internally. And long story short, we ended up combining forces with this new product area, and the vision expanded substantially. We always wanted to go there, but it kind of got accelerated. And some inside baseball, the Pass acquisition, Pass was another back end of the service at the time. Pass had caught the attention of the Google Ads folks. And the Google Ads folks were saying, well, if Facebook gets all of the developers, then they can put in front of them Facebook's ad products, and we may get disintermediated. So we need to have an offering for developers. And so that's where this initiative came from. And ads at the time was, and maybe still is, I don't have the latest information, but ads at the time had a lot of weight inside Google. And so that was, all of the matrixed resources, marketing and biz dev and all of these things were spun up to focus on this. And that's, Firebase had a big launch at I/O 2016 where we went from 3 or 4 products to like 11. Wow. And that was kind of a result of this new product area.
I'm fascinated to hear about this vision document that you wrote before you did anything else. Like, where did the motivation, the insight come from to know that that's what you wanted to build?
So my co-founder and I had done 3 startups prior to this. And the third one was what we called Facebook-style chat for any website. So in 2010, 2011, Facebook launched this bottom bar on the Facebook web experience where you could talk to your friends. And so we built this. You could drop in a couple lines of JavaScript, and fan sites and forums and games could get this experience for themselves. And our biggest customers really, really wanted to customize this experience. So they were like, I want a div here, and I want it this color, and I want these people in it. And so we started building all of these knobs and buttons and dials, and eventually it dawned on us that the full expression of choice happens through code. And my co-founder, Andrew, is credited with the insight of, hey, if we just remove the UI abstraction and we expose this as an API, and we have this sync primitive, this JSON object that syncs, you can not just build chat, but you can build anything. And as developers ourselves, we saw the browser is now a thing, the phone is now a thing, the front-end developer it's becoming an art and a profession, and being able to empower web and mobile devs to build without the permission of spinning up a VM and getting a back-end engineering team and an SRE and all of these other pieces. What Superbase does amazingly well today, empowering those people was going to be huge. And so credit to Andrew is, he set us off down that track.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of times already Parse. Can you explain what Parse is? And I'm not sure I know, when did they start? Was that around the same time as Firebase, or was it after?
So we were actually in the same Y Combinator batch as Parse. So yeah, same time. And then, Parse was a backend as a service. I believe their database was MongoDB, and they kind of built horizontally very, very quickly. Their execution speed was incredible. And we went deep into the database and built this real-time database. And real-time, at the time, you had to pull to refresh, and you were like hitting the refresh button on your web browser to get the latest. It was back in the dark ages.
And did it feel like proper competition with them at the time?
Not so much. It was because our whole angle was real-time. We focused on business collaboration. We focused on social use cases. We focused on, there was a lot of IoT type stuff. So that, later down the line we started competing, but in the first couple of years, it didn't.
And so everyone knows Parse was acquired by Facebook, who I think at the time planned to build a larger developer platform, if I remember, which they then didn't do, and so they open sourced the Parse technology, which is available today, which is cool. But obviously a shame that another great dev tools company kind of got shut down.
Some fun inside baseball. We at Google, when the Parse shutdown announcement was made, we called Facebook, and Kevin, who is the CTO of Parse, and we were like, is there a chance that we could acquire you? And unfortunately, due to execs at big companies, that didn't happen. But that's some inside baseball.
Crazy. Another question I had was, is there an alternate reality where you didn't join Google, but you joined a Facebook or a Microsoft? Did you have conversations with anyone else?
So during the acquisition, we were talking to, I think, 4 folks. We talked to Dropbox, Box, Salesforce, Apple, and Google. So I guess 5 companies. And Google was the one we were most spiritually aligned with. We loved their culture. We loved their technical chops. All of the Google infrastructure stack, being able to use that. I think Guillermo is talking about this as well, like the day one versus the day 1,000. Like, yes, you need day one, but you also need the day 1,000 experience. And whales, you have these big companies that in the developer tooling space, they will drive all of your revenue. It's a superpower law in developer tools and databases. And we were seeing our biggest customers either run into scaling issues, or as they grew into more mature companies, they just wanted so much more from us. And so partnering with one of the big 3 clouds and having that story where a Firebase project and a GCP project is the same thing. You're actually building on the same infrastructure, and so you can pick and choose. And so Google was really the only, the choice that we wanted. Otherwise, we would have kept going independently. And running the counterfactual on what that would have looked like to continue running independently is very difficult. I'm very happy with the path we took, getting to be deployed on every Android device, getting Google's weight behind us. But so I'm very happy with the decisions we made, and it's letting me do what I've done and building a new thing now. But yeah, it's
And you mentioned that Parse was built on MongoDB, and you had this big vision for the platform. Were you very opinionated about what technology you chose underneath, or were you not? Because the framing for the question is, we're very much all in on Postgres. We care that it's Postgres. There's a lot of reasons for that. Did you care so much about the underlying database technology?
To the extent that it made our user experience work, yes. So we were Scala, like entirely Scala, and we had the Akka framework and its concurrency primitives were really useful for our real-time pieces. And then we had this like custom chunking logic that ended up storing bits inside Mongo. It was Mongo under the hood, and then eventually I think it was RocksDB. But no, the short answer is no. I think that your choice of Postgres has been phenomenal. Like, I think strategically your positioning of open source and your positioning of Postgres are like two incredibly prescient strategic choices, and I see why you've done it, and I see how well it's worked for you, and I'm just super impressed with the company that you've built, with the community that you've built, the developer experience that you've built. Hats off to you, and not just the soft stuff, but the hard choices, hard technical choices that you made as well. It's been a treat to watch you grow.
How have you felt about the move? Well, at least to us, it feels like there's been a move back from NoSQL more to transactional, to SQL-based databases. Like, do you think that's a smart move?
I haven't built recently, so I'm not sure I have a strong opinion on this. I certainly think, like, especially with PG Vector and some of the embeddings pieces in the AI space, it makes a lot of sense. Like, query planners have gotten more powerful, so you can, the beauty of a NoSQL database is you could think about schemas, a little less rigidly. I don't have a strong opinion there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And you mentioned you're working on something now. What are you working on?
So yeah, I'm building a new project. It's codenamed Cradle, and we're working on evaluations for state-of-the-art frontier AI models. So we think that if you put an AI inside a simulation, 3D simulation, you get much more information about a model. You get to understand its behavior, its deceptiveness, these qualitative traits like deception and curiosity and reasoning and planning, way better than if you just ask it Q&A. It's the difference between testing somebody on an SAT versus giving them, a work trial at your company for a week. You're going to get so much more data. AI is going to be the most consequential invention of all humanity thus far. And so being able to understand where that's going and hopefully steer it is what I'm up to now.
Wow. And
so Cradle.ai, Cradle with a K. We own Cradle with a C as well, but Cradle with a K.ai.
How many co-founders?
Just one.
Just you?
Just one. One other co-founder. So me and one other. We've got 2 former Firebases working on it as well. My co-founder is a former Firebase customer. He was one of the early Firebase customers, and then he used to run TensorFlow at Google.
Wow. I'm curious, did any of the early Firebase team themselves go on and build startups?
They did, yeah. Employees 1 and 3 went through Y Combinator in 2019, I think a year before you. And then a lot of the early, one of them built KubeCost and recently sold it to IBM, I believe.
Wow.
There's been a handful of like Firebase Mafia, but a lot of, one of the things I really cared about at Firebase was culture. The first 6 Firebases and families, we get together every 2 years, we rent a big house somewhere in the world, and it's cool to see kids getting added to the mix as the years go by. So there's still a really strong, the Firebase alumni community all has like an email list, and we all stay in touch and get together when we're in the same places in the world. So.
And did everyone understand and agree and were excited by the acquisition?
Yes. I think what often gets said about we're going to make it better with acquirers' resources happened. 2, we got to do the same work. 3, we were all working with the same people. Like we worked over in the Google SF headquarters, and so we were able to like pull amazing Googlers who were like on the G bus to Mountain View every day. So we got to pull them in and work with them. And then the getting a bunch of money didn't hurt either.
Definitely. No, that's really cool. And then tips for like building that culture. Like, what were if you were to summarize the early Firebase culture, like what were the things that the team all had?
So the team all had a focus on the developer, and that focus came in the form of curiosity. It came in the form of being friendly and community-driven. It came in the form of feeling their pain. Like we institutionalized developer feedbacks where before any product was shipped, like the person who built the thing had to sit with minimum 5 people and just shut up and not say anything and watch them use it. And feeling your customer's pain developed and engendered a sense of empathy. We had all of these silly holidays and traditions. Like my co-founder, one of them is the famous ones is Bring Your Pineapple to Work Day, which is now like a national thing. Like the Dole, the pineapple company, celebrates. He brought a pineapple into work from Safeway just over here. I was like, Andrew, why do you have a pineapple? He was like, it's Bring Your Pineapple to Work Day. See, it's on the calendar. And then a year later, both of us show up to work, and employee number 2 has brought in a pineapple, and we were like, why do you have a pineapple? He's like, I don't know, it was on the calendar. And then like fast forward 7 years, we're at Google, and we've got like hundreds of people at Google bringing pineapples and canned pineapples and apples called pine and pineapple ice cream and dressing like pineapples. So we had a lot of fun with it as well. I know we're down to 3 minutes, so I have a question for you actually. I'm curious how Firebase has influenced your journey with Superbase.
So much. I think the big insight for us was people just want to communicate directly to the database. They don't want to have to write this API layer. Having auth live close to the API is clearly just a big unlock for people. Because like I just remember building a simple CRUD application, and 80% of the work was like writing the API, putting the auth in the API layer, which we felt like we didn't have to do with Firebase. The other thing was landing on the website, clicking a few buttons, and then seeing your data in the browser. Just felt like something that no one else was really doing. And I'm sure there's a way to do it in AWS, but it's just complicated and it took a long time. And we would sit in the first few weeks of Superbase with a stopwatch, and we would do a speed run of how long it would take us to land on the Firebase website, make an account, spin up a database, make your first query, and we could do it in 45 seconds on Firebase. And we were like, that's what we need to beat. And we just kept iterating on the infrastructure. How can we deploy faster? How can we get it in the browser? How can we enable people to make queries and store data from the browser itself as quickly as possible? We did it in RDS Postgres, and it took like 18.5 minutes or something. And this is when you know what buttons to press, and you really do speedrun. So all of that stuff for us was just super inspirational. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's been an absolute joy to watch you grow, and from all of the developers around the world, like, thank you for building such an amazing tool. And there are, like I'm building my new thing on Firebase, and there's pieces of it that I look at and I kind of see the Google, I can like understand why things are like not the way I would like them to be. And to see you guys come along and just build something amazing is really cool. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Do you have a Superbase account?
I do.
Have you tried it?
I haven't built a full application with it. But I get all of your emails on like the cadence of like the launch weeks and the cadence at which you ship. You're running the playbook, the Hacker News launches, you're running the playbook that we ran back in the day and doing it exceptionally well.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for building Firebase. Thank you so much for being so open to us approaching you. You gave us a lot of advice. James came in and did a remote all hands with the whole team. I think it was maybe 2021 or 2022, and we continue to learn a lot from you, so thanks a lot. And thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, you're so welcome.